running an agency doesn't have to feel like juggling flaming chainsaws. At Schmidt Consulting Group, we help you ditch the chaos, land more clients, and even enjoy running your business again. No fluff, no BS, just strategies that actually work. Check us out at schmidtconsulting.group because your agency deserves better.
Join Kurt Schmidt as he chats with Trygve Olson from BusyWeb. Dive into an episode packed with insights on digital marketing, HubSpot's transformative power, and hilarious sales creativity stories. Get ready to laugh and learn.
It's good to see you, Kurt. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for coming. All right, you want to share with the audience who you are and what the work is you do?
Gotcha. My name is Trygve Olson. I am the Director of Business Development for BusyWeb. We are a HubSpot agency that's based in Minneapolis that is focused on digital marketing and inbound marketing and HubSpot optimization.
That's awesome. And how did you find your way into the marketing world? Did you trip and fall into it like most people did?
I tripped and fell into it like most people did. There was a point in my life where I was working as a recruiter. And working as a recruiter, I think, is probably one of the most complicated and painful selling jobs that you can have because your client will let you down and break your heart.
Yeah.
And people will always let you down and say, oh my God, nah, I don't really want that, and things like that. So I needed to get out of that, and I went into something else. And I had a friend of mine who at the time had developed a conversational search engine for Twitter. And this was really one of the first uses of APIs to be able to say you could enter in data points and figure out who was talking about what. And back in 2009, that was pretty amazing stuff. And so I worked with him for about a year and a half, and we had a lot of fun with it. One of the things that we found that was really the most useful application of the tool is as kids were using Twitter to exclaim or let out their feelings, you could figure out who was a threat risk to a school.
Sure.
And one of the people that we worked with was just an amazing group of people. They were in Harlem, and they were sort of ministers. And so they would use our tool to figure out who was talking about a gangland hit because with all the advent of law and order things, they knew you could get hung from a phone record. So they'd move to social media and they'd start using the code. And so if you started to use the code, you could figure out, and they could really predict once those things were going to happen.
That's crazy.
Now, the problem is, it was incredibly heartwarming and amazing that one of the guys there told me once that he had 60 guns in his office because of me. And I feel like that was a compliment, but sure. Okay.
It's quite a jump from people breaking your heart and recruiting to people.
So I'm massively armed, thanks to you. The problem is that didn't pay well, and social media got loud. And so I sort of transitioned into other things. I transitioned into web design. Then I came to BusyWeb 10 years ago. And at that point it was a web design firm primarily, and we did marketing exercises. And then, shock, especially to your listeners, I actually figured out the concept of a marketing retainer because I sat down with a colleague of mine and we said, you know, what we should do is we should just give people, say, from a price point, we'll do anything you want for that price point. And we were like, oh my God.
This is amazing.
You can do that? And we were like, yes, this is revolutionary. This is amazing. And then later we found out that a lot of people do that. And we're like,
right.
Yeah, they copied us. But at the time, this was amazing. And so
that's great.
We've since sort of evolved into sort of what I like to think of as sort of full front of the house operations. So from lead generation to website design to conversion over into sales, that's really where our expertise lies.
Got it. And so you utilize a lot of HubSpot, and I want to hear how HubSpot has kind of revolutionized things because, I mean, a lot of people have moved to HubSpot. Let's assume some people in my audience don't understand the impact that tool can have versus what we used to have versus what we have now. And what's the differences in what's the impact you've seen it have in businesses once they implement a tool like HubSpot?
So the cliche of HubSpot is that it's really expensive. And the answer is, yeah. But if you think about all the things that you want to have, and in terms of your front of the house activities, you want to have a CRM, you want to have pay-per-click marketing, you want to see you want to have email marketing, you really want to have sales activity is roiled in so you can actually start crediting people, or you could see when somebody's opened a document or something like that. Then you want to have social media scheduling tools so you can say, hey, I'm going to batch write all my social media for them and do it now. And then you also want to see, how is this all working and how is one thing relating to the other relating to the other. What I described is about 14 different tool sets if you go out of the market, all of which are $91 a month per seat, or you can buy something like HubSpot. So what ends up happening is it ends up being 6 of one, half a dozen the other. And a lot of times people are like, oh, HubSpot, that's too expensive. I don't want to do that. Sure. But then it's a question, what's the opportunity cost lost and not have a simplified tech stack? I think that's really where the magic of HubSpot comes into play, is this one thing that's doing a lot of things for you. And especially, I think, in 2025, when we're recording this right now, I think what I'm struggling with is literally every tool set that I use in my life has an AI component. And so I now have this little stable of robots out in the back, which I really don't know what to do with, but they're here and they're ready to help. And I don't really know how, but they're here. And, like Amazon wants to tell me something. I just turned on Apple Intelligence on my phone, which is a hoot. Like right before this, I had a sales meeting right before this, I had a message on LinkedIn to a guy who thought I was being frustrating and didn't want to talk to me anymore. And so what Apple Intelligence summarized the message and showed it on my phone was Dan won't respond to you anymore. And that's what it showed on my screen. It was like, well, that's awesome.
Thanks.
Okay, good. Check. I've been briefed. Thank you.
Well,
so the point is that right now there's all sorts of shiny keys and everybody's shaking them all at once and nobody really knows which one to do and start with. And so to me, I think the fundamental notion of how to run a successful business, I think you start with 3 things. Is number one is you pick your name, you buy your domain. The second thing is you get control of your money and your finances. How are you going to bill? How are you going to get money? Who is going to take care of your taxes and make sure everybody gets paid? The third is really to have a notion of where your data is and what you can do with it in a positive way. And that you need a tool like HubSpot.
That's what I was going to ask you about next, because I've seen a lot of businesses think that a tool will solve all their problems. But how often is it when you get in there and you start putting in HubSpot, you find that culturally or organizationally, they're not mature even enough to start using the tool? I mean, isn't that pretty common?
Yes. And I think that's usually one of the things that, as somebody who's tasked in selling HubSpot, that is often a challenge, is something as simple as saying, do you have a sales process? Yeah. Okay, great. Is it written down? Okay. Can you write it down? Or I think the most famous case that I ever took on, which somebody I work with will never let me hear the end of it, is I asked the customer, do you have all of your data in one centralized location? Yes, we do. Can we see it? Yes, we can. Okay, great. Moving on. 2 weeks later, I asked the question again after they'd already signed with me. Hey, can we see all your data? And he goes, sure. It's right there. He pointed to a shelf behind him. Wait, what? And he said, oh yeah. Every time we get a new customer, we write all the information down, we put it in a booklet, we put it on that shelf. So it's all right there. It's all right there.
Binders.
So I think what you really need to think of is, if you're going to really look at a tool like that, is where are you falling down internally? And can you have the maturity and the ability to, we're losing steam because things are too complicated internally. Things aren't going as fast as they want to be. And I talk a lot about business as a restaurant. You can have this great front of the house operation as much as possible, where you have really nice smooth jazz and you got clean linens and you have a really nice waiter, but eventually somebody's got to make the food. And so a professional kitchen is built for brutal efficiency, and it has to go as fast as possible because that's all part of the buying experience. And so if you're slow on the front end, you're not going to be able to make up yardage on the back end either.
Right. Yeah, because that's what I've found over and over again, is that if you are not ready to accept, and it's the same with AI stuff, right? Because in my mind, what AI has been doing is has been highlighting inefficiencies in organizations, because if they don't know how to use it, it's because usually they don't have a process in place that it can actually replace, or a repeatable process, right? Because as you've probably experienced, there's that guy. That's the guy. That's the guy that knows everything. He's the one salesperson at that client, and he's the one that holds all the information. And you're like, oh, let's make it more efficient by plugging in some AI. Like, he doesn't have a process, right? He's just going off of however he feels that day.
He's things are being accomplished, but he can't get it out of his head.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I find that maybe in the businesses that I'm working with, usually there's one person that's kind of using AI, like they're using it for like copywriting or emails or things like that. But there's no business level use of AI in a lot of these places. And even if they do have the tools that say that has AI in it, they're not utilizing it anyways.
And the other thing about AI is, especially in marketing, it can't really replace an actual person. It can, but so if you want something to write a 500-word blog, man, you can have it happen like that. It can be done just like that. Is it factual? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe. You actually have to read it and figure that out. Is it correct? You have to think about it's basing it on the context of everything on the internet. Maybe it found the right one. Maybe it didn't. Maybe the methodology is doing it wrong. I once used a ChatGPT to show a client how to do this. And I said, hey, write me a 500 blog on such and such a topic. And boom, it cracked it out right away. Then what happened was I sent it to the client. 3 days later, she sent me an email that I never forget, which was, this was great. And this was amazing technology. And everything in here is 100% wrong.
Yeah. Yep.
There's nuance in language. There's nuance in presentation. There's a voice. Really, anything that when you're talking about digital marketing on the whole, it has to be warm, and it has to make you as the end user have the emotion of saying, I want to learn more, and I want to put up a hand and say, tell me more. Yep. And if it doesn't do that, because it sounds too robotic, like I'm sure, Kurt, you get this email all the time, which is, dear Trygve, I hope this email finds you well. Who in their right mind in 2025 says, I hope this finds you well?
People with a quill, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe, yes. I mean, if you're worrying about being vaporish and whether or not Martha got the crops in, then I hope this email finds you well. So there are little telltale signs like that. And I think there are great things like you can use AI to write a prompt to say, hey, write me a paragraph on this. And I even did this today. I said, write me a paragraph on this. But then I edited it to make it faster, which was great because then I am of the opinion, as somebody who's been in marketing for the last 15 years professional career, is that the most terrifying thing to anybody in the world is a blank piece of paper and an order to create.
Yep. And that's where I find that AI has been most helpful for me, is not as a prompting tool to prompt AI to give me things, but AI to prompt me to give it things.
Yes.
And since I built that relationship with the tools that I'm using, it's made a huge world of difference.
Yes. But I think there's a real danger right now, especially in selling, because one of the things I do is I teach pipeline generation for HubSpot as a sort of a side gig. And so using AI to do these sort of creative prompts, you absolutely have to take it with a grain of salt. Yeah. And you actually have to review everything because everybody's doing it and nobody's doing it. It's sort of like like one of the things that I've done at BusyWeb for a long time is I do a monthly webinar, an educational webinar. I do it with the owner of the company. He's a guy named Dave Meyer. And he and I have sort of pinged back and forth for 10 years. So when the pandemic hit and everybody had to go digital immediately, everybody started doing webinars and they were all universally awful. You would get people who would do a 10-deck slide and they would show you something and then they would read it to you. And then, if you're doing a webinar, you have to change it within every 20 seconds. Because if you're not, people are gone. They're just gone. And the AI is the same way, especially in selling right now, is that if it's too verbose and it's not fun and it's not irreverent, people don't want to talk to you and people aren't going to phone. And that's right now, the world is so utterly annoying. One of the things that I genuinely enjoy is disruption in that and going old school. and
Yep.
doing things in a different way. So
Yeah.
one of the classic examples of that I did. My job is as a salesperson is to get and capture somebody's attention, and it's not to have to do it in a way that they will like me, because it's always easy to get somebody to call you back. Because I can leave you a phone mail message that says, "Kurt, you're obviously not as big as you think you are. Do you know anybody else who actually has the stones to do this kind of work?"
Yeah.
Who the hell are you? A lot of times you have to figure out creative ways to get people's attention. And so one of the stories that I'm sort of famous for is I was working with a $100 million company, and my contact, a very, let's say, outdoorsy, woodsy guy. And he was high enough in the company that he could wear whatever he wanted. So he usually wore like camo shirts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He wasn't calling me back. He wasn't calling me back. So I went to my local grocery store and about 24 long stem red roses, and I brought them to the office with my card. So I gave them to the receptionist, and I said, "Here, this is for this person." And she's like, "Or are you a floral delivery person?" I'm like, "No, these are for me." He's married, right? And I go, "Yeah, I know. Do you want to leave a message?" "No, just give him the flowers." And about 10 days later, he called me back and he said, "Get your ass in here right now." So I drove down to his office, and I was standing in the lobby, and he walked in the lobby and he screamed, "Why did you give me flowers?" And I said, "Hey man, let's go back to your office." And I walked by him because I knew where his office was. I went and sat in his office, and he came in. He's like, "Okay, I don't know what's going to happen here, but it's not going to be good." He's like, "All right, I shouldn't have yelled at you. Why did you give me flowers?" I said, "Oh, they weren't for you." And then it was when it talked about the website that we were trying to build for him and what we were planning on doing. Finally, he's like, "Okay, look, it's bothered me for 10 straight days. I have to know, what on earth made you think it was okay to give me flowers?" So I kind of threw up my hands. "Oh, the flowers were not for you. I said that already." He's like, "I don't know what you mean." He said, "Okay, I brought you 24 long stem red roses. Did you throw them away?" "No."
No.
"Did you take them home? You took them home and gave them to your lady, didn't you?" "Yeah." "Did you tell him, hey, this weirdo brought me red roses, and so I'm re-gifting them because I didn't want to throw them away because people in the office would think it'd be weird?" "No." "You said, hey, I got some roses for you today." "Yeah, I did that." "Okay, I told you the roses weren't for you. What you needed was a reminder that listening to me and working with me is going to make your life better."
Love it.
Anytime you're in that environment, writing an email, writing an ad, that helps in bulk. But in an era where everybody's trying to figure out how to be personal and do it in bulk, the best thing people can really do right now is to actually just be themselves and be a little bit irreverent, be interesting, because at the end of the day, the people that I work with, I'm going to spend more time with them more than anything else.
And I had this discussion so many times with people because I give the same advice. You want to be, everybody talks about being authentic, but nobody is actually being authentic because they're too afraid to be themselves. And the pushback I get is I want people to think I'm professional. I want people to respect that I'm a professional. And I was like, well, can't respect you're a professional until they get to know you. So it doesn't work the reverse way. They don't respect you as a professional and then go, oh, I guess I like that person. It's very, unless you're a rocket scientist or something, there's a big difference if you walk in with a huge title versus the rest of us. So there's that part. Then I also get the pushback. What if they don't like it? And I'm like, well, then do you want to work with those people? Yep. Because that's the other big difference that I'm sure you found out with that as well. Because if you're out being yourself and they don't like, why would you want to work with them?
Yes. As I've demonstrated a little bit today, I'm funny. Mm-hmm. And I went through pretty intensive improv training about 12, 13 years ago. And one of the things that I got out of that was all my life up until that point, I had been apologizing for being funny. And I had been smoothing myself out and aw-shucksing it, or letting people know at the time, oh, hey, I'm sorry if I offend you. I really just, anything like that. So I've stopped doing that. So if you don't find me funny, you and I are not going to last long term. because it's just who I am. And yes, the company I work with is an incredibly competent marketing firm that does amazing work, but the people I work with, they're also funny. They enjoy a good laugh. And so if you don't find me funny, they're not going to find you funny either.
Yeah. Yep. And this is, honestly, we're supposed to try and have fun doing this work. Like, it's not supposed to be like hard labor in a quarry.
Yes.
So,
yes.
We're trying to attract people that want to work with our clients' businesses. And again, as we've learned in America, I mean, brand is a big part of what makes a successful organization. And there's companies, I was listening to someone not long ago talking about where the biggest brands come from. And you would think, because people have always talked about China sort of being this superpower when it comes to manufacturing and stuff, right? But there's no, I can't name a popular brand out of China, maybe BYD, but you can't even get those cars here anyway. So
are those the little tiny ones that come in the kit that you, that I can't put my time in?
Yeah, they're really good. They're really good cars. Like, you can get a really amazing EV for $14,000 or something. But again, like places like South Korea and Japan, right? You've got Sony, you got Samsung, like they've got good branding skills and stuff too. But there's only like a couple coming out of all of those places either. America, and if that's your goal, is to sell in America, which is the richest country in the world. Brand goes a long way. And what is brand? But other than what people's perception is of you, your reputation, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the key is brand really is, it's a preamble to what you're going to expect from working with someone and what you get from it. If I just bought an LG washer, which is a Korean washer. And the guy I bought it from said, no, it's really hard to get parts. I was like, yeah, but it's also highly rated on Consumer Reports and says it's not going to break. I think the other thing that I get so frustrated with right now, Kurt, is I think people don't have an appreciation for the simple idea that two things can be true at the same time. I have a really good washer, and yes, it's hard to get. Well, that's because it doesn't break that much. There's not an availability of parts like it is something else. Sure. Yeah, buying something is always a challenge, but especially when you're talking about marketing, there's no guarantees in marketing. I tell people say all the time, "Can you give me a guarantee?" Yes. I guarantee that me and the team that you're going to be placed with are going to work really hard to do everything we can to help you achieve your goals.
Yep.
But there's so many intangibles in place. Like one of the other stories that I think is really illustrative as a note of that is I had a client once who about 6 months into their engagement fired us just like this. Just, nope, we're done. And we couldn't figure out why to save our life because we were delivering them 40 to 60 leads a month. It was something ridiculous where they were getting amazing amounts of leads from their digital marketing activities. And so finally, because it was just troubling somebody that I work with, it was a colleague. She's like, man, I just can't get over this. So I called them up and I said, what did you do with the leads that we gave you? And they said, anytime we got a lead from you, we sent them a brochure, but then they never called back. And you can even as I say that, you can just sort of feel the sad trombone just like laying on your soul. As somebody's put up their hand and says, I'm interested in hearing more. Call them up, email them. Great. Let's talk. Let's have a personal engagement, don't send me another piece of information. And so that's illustrated for me as a marketer to say, I don't have a full control of the entire process. The only thing my job is to tee the ball up. So your salespeople can hit it down the field. And if I don't have that, then I really can't help you. Or if you really think that marketing is if it's just a magic pill that if you just spend the right amount of money or have the right team, it really doesn't work like that anymore. In 2008, it worked like that, where you could throw up a Facebook page and then all of a sudden you'd have $1.5 million in revenue. But now, not so much. But now it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and you have to develop an audience. You have to you develop a niche and make sure that they're selling right for you. Yeah.
Back to my point about what used to work isn't working these days, right?
It's back to old school, I think, is
100%.
Making relationships with people, using the technology in order to keep understanding who you're talking to and why you're talking to. There's a great Office episode where Dwight and Michael were fighting, And Dwight took one of Michael's Rolodex cards. And so he took it to the client and he said, "And how is your son the homosexual? Don't read that out loud." It was like,
Yep.
that's good intelligence. So you don't ask your son, you don't ask the guy, "Hey, you craft your conversations to be sensitive and notable to the person."
Yeah.
But, that's what the technology and things, a good CRM and good digital marketing should do, is help you connect the dots in order to have a real genuine connection.
Yeah. We used to have terms for it a decade ago. It was account-based marketing.
Yep.
And nowadays, I just think that's marketing now. I don't know if it's necessarily a separate thing anymore, is it?
I think if somebody raises their hand, you're immediately into account-based selling and figuring out what do they need, how do they need it? Because good selling right now is not selling you something you need. It's figuring out what you need and then the cost of inactivity, which I think is a buzzword that I've been really sort of tortured with lately, of how do you do that without seeming like a jerk? Because everybody is, "Oh, yeah, let me show you the cavern that if you don't do this, how your life is going to be terrible." But on the other hand, if you're here and you're talking to me, it means you got a problem. It means it hurts a little.
Yep.
So what's the value for you of it stopping the hurt?
Yep.
Is that money or is it time? Because typically anything right now is especially in the B2B, where it's how can you help me make more money? How can you help me save money? Or how can you help me have a different relationship with time? That's really it. It's one of those three things.
Mm-hmm.
And it means something different to everybody.
Yeah. And a lot of the agencies I'm working with right now, and the way I'm coaching them, is that, to your point, 5-10 years ago, you used to be able to put your list of services up, and then people would go in a menu, like back to your notion about a restaurant. And I pick the services I want, and then I implement stuff and we go or whatever. But now what people are looking for is results, to your point. Like, they want you to speak to business results. They want to see the impact. They don't care about what the services are. That's your job, the services. Yeah. You figure out what services we need. But what I want is a 20% increase in lead generation this year.
Yeah. And the way that I usually talk about that is say, no, you really don't. And they say, "Of course I do, because I just said that and I know what I'm talking about." So then we'll call it the Kurt's mom corollary. So let's pretend that you're not Kurt and you hire me to do lead generation for you. I give you Kurt's mom's phone number and name. Did I do my job? On the one hand, yeah, because I gave you a name and I gave you a lead, right? No. On the other hand, is your mom going to buy from you? Well, your mom probably is, but somebody else's mom going to buy from you? Probably not.
Probably not.
So there's a sunk cost fallacy to bad lead generation that doesn't matter. So what I tell people is that's not really what you want. How much more in revenue do you get? Because the converse to that is, okay, you want 100 new leads, because that's what everybody says is, I want 100 new leads. I need 100 new leads by the end of the month. Great. Okay, great. If I give that to you, can you service them? Okay. The concept of smart growth really is helpful, because if you're not growing in a way that you can actually grow with the business, then you're not servicing them correctly, and then you're just gone. In a world where everybody's angry and it's so noisy, if people don't get what they want, they're going to tell a whole lot of people that they didn't get what they want.
Yeah, they're going to tell anybody who will listen, and it can destroy your reputation over and over again.
Yes.
And it's really hard to recover from that. But again, back to these folks that are trying to utilize and squeeze AI to do a lot of the stuff for them. It certainly will save the marketing team time, but it doesn't actually move the needle.
Oh, and the only way you're going to get that is through experience with marketers who really can understand who your ideal customer profile is, that happens to me all the time. I don't know if that happens to your agency listeners. Is somebody comes, or everybody is our ideal customer.
Oh, sure. Yeah. All the time.
Not unless you're selling heat, warmth, or food. Yeah. Then no, I used to say heat, warmth, or love, but then I found out there are places in Nevada you can get that.
That's true.
I don't do that anymore. Because then there's the larger question of, especially in the agency world, is just because you can work with somebody and give them what they want, are they somebody you want to associate with?
Right.
Getting back to the early point, I'm funny. If you don't find me funny, boy, your price is going to go up.
Yep.
Or I'm going to have to put time and effort in and being a different person in order to work with.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I give that same advice all the time. You don't have there's no such thing as a bad client. There's just clients you don't charge enough.
Yes. Or clients who, an important lesson I learned when I was a kid is my 21st birthday, I had lunch with the president of my university, and he was in a fight with the Washington, D.C. City Council at the time. And one person in particular, I don't remember the name of the person, but I said to him, "Oh boy, you must really want her dead, huh?" He said, "No, I don't want anybody dead. That's mean, and that's just not me. I like her better if she lived in Florida, but I don't want her."
I'd like her better in Florida. I know a lot of people I'd like better in Florida, to be honest.
I mean, I think I'm blessed right now where the clients that we have at BusyWeb are all just nice, genuine people. And to me, I think that's part of my role as the top of the funnel is can you get a lot of gigs? That's not really the issue. The issue is getting a gig that's going to be here 6 months from now, 9 months from now, 12 months from now, 2 years from now. Because we're living in a world, especially when you talked about results, like SEO is a great way that people can lie with statistics in order to show results.
Yes.
Right now, anybody who's realistically selling SEO services should tell you that money that you're spending now is not going to pay off until a year from now.
Yep.
Not 3 months from now, not 6 months from now. That's what the book says. That's what the cliche is. Because AI is changing the landscape of SEO and everybody's trying to figure it out.
Yep.
So doing things the old way isn't necessarily going to work. I literally have a team of 4 people who spends hours a day working on refining AI strategies for these kind of things so that we can be faster than everybody else. But what I would say to your audience, especially in the agency world, is be yourself. If you have to tell somebody the truth and they don't like it, that's not on you, man.
It's not on you.
Because you're going to have to be the one who's going to be servicing it. And if you told them a lie to get the gig, it's going to catch up with you. It 100% always catches up with you. Even if you don't tell them a lie, stuff catches up with you all the time.
Yep. That's right. I could talk to you all day about this stuff, and you're going to have to come back on the show.
My pleasure. It was always great fun talking to you. And
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for your flexibility in making this happen. So if I want to get in touch with you, if I want to know more about BusyWeb and the work you're doing, where do I go? Where do I find out more? Wasn't this the 9th reschedule of this podcast? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think you're right.
Oh, man, I feel like I won an Oscar waiting for this.
Yeah, you're welcome.
BusyWeb.com, BIZZYWEB.com. If you click on the Our Team, you can find my bio, and in my bio is all my contact information, as well as a link to my schedule where you can just pick a time that works for you, and I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody.
Awesome. Again, I thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll get you to come back on the show soon.
Kurt, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, we'd love it if you left a review on iTunes or Spotify. It makes a big difference. And be sure to check out schmidtconsulting.group for more ideas and insights. Remember, every big dream starts with a single step. Keep moving forward, stay curious, and don't forget, we're rooting for you. See you next time.